Okay, hello. I
Hey,
am, hi. Hi. So, everybody, I'm Ella Barnard, and we have here with me Megan Maxwell-Smith. She is a writing coach, literature maven, and procrastination buster. Woo! Um, Megan's superpower is breaking down the writing process into bite sized steps and tailoring those steps to fit each individual client's learning style. She used to be a teacher, but now she focuses solely on her passion, which is writing. And she's been doing that. She's been doing writing, and she's been a writing coach she's been writing for a really long time, but she's been a writing coach for 10 years. So welcome, Megan. Thank you for being here.
thanks for having me, Ella.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so first things like, how did you become a writing coach?
In a very kind of gut following way. Out of college, I knew I wanted to be in education because I was just fascinated by how people learn. I loved being around people learning. So I knew I wanted to be a teacher, and I was a classroom assistant right out of college and transitioned into being a full-fledged classroom teacher and had a lot of fun with it. But I would kind of spend the most time on language arts. I would give long grammar lessons and long writing lessons. And my favorite part was when the whole class was working on something and I got to go around individually to the students and
Mm-hmm.
help them with whatever they were stuck on. So a little voice in my head said, you could just do writing and you could just work with students 101. And I thought, oh, that's crazy. But I jumped, I listened, and I just left teaching and started with a few families, and eventually moved into full-time, letting go. Initially, I was still substituting for the school I had worked for to make the ends meet, and eventually I had enough families that I was just doing the writing coaching, the writing help and language arts and grammar tutoring full time. And after, let's see, quite a few years doing that, about 7 years doing that, I moved online and a whole new world opened up. You know, most students are writing their essays on their computers, and instead of having the schedule struggle and trying to juggle so many activities and homework, I have that, you know, really easy scheduling component, and I could just share work immediately with students. It used to be so frustrating when I would be in an in-person session with a student and she'd say, oh, I really have a question on whatever. And I would think, oh, back home on my bookshelf, I have the perfect resource about that very topic, but I cannot give it to you right now. So I love how it makes me flexible. And that's really been a game changer, is moving the writing coaching online.
Well, I imagine that you can like if you're on a Google Doc or something, that you
Yeah,
can be sitting there like both of you working on
absolutely.
the same document at the same time. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how something impersonal like the computer actually makes writing a much more intimate process, but at the same time, less intimidating. Imagine if you're sitting writing and somebody is looking over your shoulder. It's really uncomfortable, right? Especially if you're a teenager and that person's an adult. Is, oh, what are you doing now? And there's a tendency to self-edit, and it makes getting your ideas out really hard. But there's something about a computer screen that, first of all, gives the distance. But then, as you were saying, it's true. We can both be working in the same doc at the same time, and it becomes more like a workshop space. And I love how it really frees students, especially more timid or shy students, to just let loose with their ideas and feel like, okay, it's easily erased. You know, it's not on paper. It's not,
Right.
I don't
It's
know,
not a red
as,
pen.
yeah, exactly. It's not as permanent. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a friendly comment.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, um, that is really cool. I'm curious because so you have your own business as, as a writing coach, and
Yeah.
you've moved online, you've been doing this for a while, and I'm curious about so you're a business, you're an entrepreneur, really. And one of the topics that we were going to talk about today is about pursuing our goals uh, um, in a kind of feminine way.
Yeah.
So, because I don't know about you, but like one of the things that I have a difficulty with is I'll read things. I'll be like reading these really popular like top 10 business books, and and then I'll try to go put them into action. And I'm like, why is this so hard? Like, it's really, really hard. It just seems everything takes more effort than it sounds like when I'm reading the book. And it's not because I don't take action. It's because there's something else. So I've been thinking about how women go after their goals in a different way, in a more feminine way than men in some, not, in some ways. So I was wondering what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, instead of the feeling of go, 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 do, finding ways to, I don't know, I almost think like relax into action. So here's a recent example. It's been really rainy where I am on the Central Coast. We've been having tons of rain, which is great. California is so parched.
Yeah.
But yesterday it was gray, and I just had that kind of, that lazy, hazy feeling you get on a rainy day. And I had a lot of things I wanted to get done. And for me, a more masculine approach would have been, I'm just going to go and I'm going to tackle it, I'm going to work. And I knew that wouldn't work for me. So I put on some like quiet, mellow music, and I put on like a really comfy, fuzzy sweater. And I just relaxed into the day with this approach that I wasn't going to get anywhere by fighting myself or by trying to go, 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 do. But I could be caring to myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for me, that's a more like feminine way to still work and be productive. But my approach was, let me make this really comfortable and lovely for you. Like how can I invite you to come work and make it something you want to do? I have bubble bath meetings because I am a solopreneur. There's nobody else in my business. One of my favorite things to do, again, that's about like inviting myself to the task, is I put my iPod on and get in a bubble bath and use the voice memo app and just talk through the things I want to do for the week, or if I'm stuck on a particular project, I kind of brainstorm out loud. And I hope I don't drop my iPod in the bath. That would be a bad outcome. But that idea, I mean, it seems like something you shouldn't be able to do, right? Oh, you can't have a business meeting and also relax. But for me, it is a really inviting way to say, oh, this is your business and I want you to feel comfortable in it, Megan. So how can you do that? And sometimes it's a fuzzy sweater, and sometimes it's a cup of tea in my favorite teacup. But I love those strategies for being gentle and moving myself toward productivity the way I would want to move a student, I guess. You know what I mean? Or a young child. Not with forcing, but with like, hey, it looks fun over here. Come on.
Right. I really like that. I really, really like that. Like I think it's Sark. I was reading one Sark's book. I know it was Sark, but she was saying how I think she actually makes like one of those wheels, like they have like where you spin the wheel and it's like kind of like Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
But then whatever it lands on, the thing lands on, that's the thing that she does for 20 minutes or something.
Oh, okay. So it's like a task wheel.
Yeah, a task wheel, but like she just spins it. She's not like, let me move it to where I want it. She just spins it, and it's full of things that she enjoys doing, but things that also need to get done. And then she's like 20 minutes.
That's great for two reasons. I mean, one, obviously it adds the element of fun, but it's also a contained choice, right?
Right.
And going back to kids, in the same way when you're babysitting or if you have young ones, you say, okay, would you like to brush your teeth first or put on your pajamas first? You're offering what's a contained choice because both things have to get done, but it gives you first of all, it takes away the need to spend the mental energy to figure out what you're going to do next. But it's also more empowering. I mean, I guess in the case of the wheel, it's more about the play and about the fun. But you don't lose the time going, what would be the one perfect thing I could work on next to my business? And I know I get stuck that way sometimes. And I've talked to other business owners who get stuck that way, especially women, which is interesting to me. I wonder if there's an element there of not just the tasks that need to get done, but a perception of what would a responsible business owner do. Do you ever get stuck in that mode? What would be the one thing that if, my business guru were looking down on me, she would want to see me doing, right? Like, what's the thing I could do to really seem like a good business owner, not just to get the tasks done?
Yeah, which is a funny thing because it takes you away from that thought takes you out of your body and out of necessarily what you really need to be doing.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's this other perspective that can be judgmental or supportive. But I really like that. I like the idea of having like the contained choices. I really like that because it gives you like this freedom of feeling, or this feeling of freedom. I
like that phrase.
Freedom of feeling.
Yeah, the freedom to feel.
Yeah, but I also like the part that a lot of people that sounds good to me is doing something for just 20 minutes. Like it's a very set amount of time. I know that, I've done some workshops and they say that women are not have a harder time doing single focus, like just focusing on one thing for hours at a time. It's harder for us. It's like, it just naturally, biologically, we have other things that we're really excellent at. Like if you need to find anything in your house, and your husband's like, "Where's the keys?" And you just walk in the room and you're like, "There it is." That's a thing. Like there's a difference.
Yeah.
But the fun of the contained choices is you have the 20 minutes and then 20 minutes later you can do something else. And so it's like this, like, oh, I don't have to stay focused on this thing for 3 hours. Or you can. There's obviously going to be times when you do want to, but adding that element of fun.
Yeah, I find that beyond the contained choices, something else that helps me invite myself and still feels like I don't have to go push. It's just having habits. And it's a really simple idea. It's harder to implement, but I noticed that the things in my business I've set up habits for are the things that get done. So when it's Monday and it's time to work on the rough draft of my blog for the week, I'm there and I know that's what I have to do before I can move on. And so, I mean, that's more of a constraint, but because it's a habit, it doesn't have the feeling of forcing myself to do it.
Right.
And then
go ahead.
I just say a third thing that's not, rocket science in any way is if I'm really fighting myself on an activity, I stop. Because if I'm sitting there and it's not happening, right, then I'm not getting work done. And I'm also just getting farther and farther into a negative headspace. So I don't mean I sit and I try for 5 minutes. I mean, I've been working at the same thing for half an hour, 45 minutes, and I'm not making any headway. I stop. I walk away and I do something else. And I think that there's a masculine thinking that says you just use your willpower and you just try harder and you just go. And it might be true that if I really, I nailed myself to the seat and I didn't allow myself to do anything else, that eventually I would get something out. But I think doing it that way makes me lose so much time and is so draining and exhausting that then I'm ruined for anything else. So there's a certain point. I mean, it's great to have the habits and the contained choices and these strategies for like inviting yourself to do things. But at a certain point when it's not working, I say, stop.
Well, and the thing, I really like that one. I really like that because it's a self-care thing. Yeah. And along that self-care lines, when you're talking about habits, what I thought about was because it sounds like, oh, habits of working, but it can be actually habits of, you can build in habits that or schedule into your life and create habits of self-care. So you're like, oh, before I go down to work on the rough draft on my blog, I have a cup of my favorite tea, and then, every 15 minutes, I take a minute, I stand up, I stretch, and you just build in these self-care things into your habits that makes it so that working doesn't have to be like work. Work can be, enjoyable and pleasant.
Well, when what works for you, then why not use it? Right. Yeah. And I think that's a feminine way of thinking too, that it doesn't have to be, you'll do it my way because it's my way, right?
Right.
If you're working with somebody else, or if you're working with yourself, I'll do it the way, this famous person gets it done. If you take advantage of what you know is your natural thinking pattern, or the things that you like, right, that are inspiring,
Yeah,
or
right.
that feel rewarding,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll still get it done and you'll enjoy it more. I think there's a misconception that running a business, or business generally, should be miserable, right? Like it's not worthwhile work unless you're really suffering for it, right? You're running a marathon and you're miserable and your knees are giving out and you're being yourself because you're working so hard. Why? It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so the next topic that we were going to talk about was women and self-confidence. So yeah, which is another fun topic.
Yeah.
So I think that I was doing some thinking about this before we get started, and I was thinking about how I know people. I have these stories of like, I know so many stories of dudes where they just are like they just kind of, not all men, but a number of successful men have this confidence and boldness that just like naturally, so for example, my stepfather, there's this story of him where he was like 19 or something. And he went to the Pepsi, headquarters, the local Pepsi headquarters in like San Francisco or something, walked into some bigwig's office and and was like, "You need to give me a job."
Oh.
And he's
without a resume ahead of time.
No resume, wow.
And what happened?
No appointment.
Did he get tossed out on his ear?
No, he got a job.
Seriously?
Yeah. The guy was like, "I like your attitude. I like your boldness. You've got one." And he worked there and he was traveling across the country. Like, he had this great job then with Pepsi because of his boldness and confidence. And I think about that and I'm like, that is not the way that I gained. That's not the way that, one, I was not born. I came up from a background where I didn't just have confidence like that, or I lost it somehow. But so now, as I'm regaining my confidence in my life, I realized as I was preparing for this that the way that I get more confident is I'm like flipping out. Like I set a goal that I want to do something. I freak out and I'm like, my hands are shaking and I start breathing hard. I start hyperventilating a little bit, and then I start taking shots of tequila to like calm. I'm like,
I hope one of the things you want to do is not learn to pilot a plane.
No. This is like when I want to, when I'm like planning on moving, like when I was planning on moving here to Idaho, it was like, this is a big change.
Yeah. I know. Let me quit my job, start a new business, and move to another state. That should be easy.
Yeah, no big deal. But then afterwards, after I do the thing, and it goes okay, then I'm like, oh, I can do that. I feel more confident now, but I don't get the confidence before I do the thing. I definitely get the confidence afterwards. And I was wondering, like, what are your thoughts on confidence, self-confidence?
I'm in your same boat. I totally have to fake it. And there are some times where I'm fine with it. I love to be in front of crowds. I love to give talks to parents and students. I love to MC events. And then it's totally fine for me to not feel exactly confident, but also feel comfortable. And then, there are other times where, when it comes to work, when it comes to business, I go, if I'm not doing this exactly right, if this resource isn't exactly the perfect thing for the student, then, oh my gosh, the world will end. And absolutely, you just have to do it. And there have been plenty of times where I have just done it and then, slowly realized, okay, I guess I can't. The when I finally matched with my tutoring business, what I had been making as a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
I looked at that and went, oh, okay, maybe I do have the skills. And I mean, meanwhile, I was getting all this feedback from people that they were really happy and their kids were happy and were doing better at school. But it wasn't translating into confidence for a really long time. So yeah, there's a delay, definitely. And I didn't start my own business because I felt confident I could do it. I started it because I really, really, really wanted it to work. I was like, maybe I can have my dream job. And I had other people who had much more confidence in me than I had in myself. I had other people who said, just do it, go for it.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, taking that action is important. And then, I mean, women are maybe not perceived as being as confident, or when we are, it's seen as a negative thing. And I wonder if that feeds into whether we let ourselves feel confident or not. Do you know what I mean? Like that image of an assertive woman, and she is very quickly called names, right?
Well, yeah, that's when I was thinking about this conversation, and then when I was thinking about my stepdad who got that job just walking into the big wigs at Pepsi.
Yeah.
The other part of my thought was, wow, I wonder if it had been like me or some other woman just walking into the office, if it had been a woman, would they have gotten the same response, or would they have been called, a name, or like, I don't know if it would have been exactly the same, because there's a whole different culture around women who are really confident.
I start to wonder, when you see people who seem very confident, whether they feel confident or whether it's in some ways an act. Do you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
it's just posturing.
Well, I actually had somebody give me some advice of fake it until you make it.
Because, I love that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love it. First of all, because it rhymes, so it must be true. I'm reading right now a fantastic book by Valerie Long, I think is her last name. It's The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women. Mm-hmm. And it's about something she calls imposter syndrome. And pretty much it's this culture-wide phenomenon of women thinking they don't have what it takes to make it, even when they do. And she tells this hilarious story about Martha Beck, the life coach, mm-hmm. who, when she was getting her PhD, was on her way to a class, and she got kind of waylaid talking to somebody in a research lab where they were doing some kind of experiment, and there were these rats swimming in a kiddie pool, and the kiddie pool had the character Smurfs on it. So she goes to her class and she's, oh, I'm so sorry I'm late. I got caught up. I was watching rats in the Smurf pool. And immediately a guy says, oh, Smurf, I know his research. And another guy says, oh, yes, I read Smurf's last article. And this light bulb went off in her head that all these guys she had been thinking, like all these guys in her PhD program, she was thinking, they're so together. They know exactly what they're doing. Because they were confident, she realized they're just BSing half the time. Like, they're confident, but they don't have something to back it up necessarily. And so I love that idea of fake it till you make it, because putting yourself out there is, like you were saying, that's how you see if you can do it. Yes. Right? Of course, you don't know whether you can do it until you do it.
No.
So just, fake the confidence, try it, and then you'll get a sense of if you can move forward and be good at that. But I thought that was good. I read Smurf's last paper, and she must have been dying.
Oh my gosh. I'm shocked by that. On one hand, I'm like, what? Because I would never, ever even think of just coming up with some kind of bullshit like that.
Yeah.
But
on the other hand, you're like, I can imagine guys doing that, right?
I know some people who would absolutely do that, including my stepdad. So, I like you're saying, do it, like go ahead and fake it. And sometimes for me, the faking it is a shot of tequila. It really helps me to fake it when I have a shot of tequila.
But it's a really good reminder that confidence and competence are not equal, and that you may be perfectly competent and be lacking the confidence, and the other thing could be true. And we all have these I mean, we're more competent in certain areas, and that doesn't always match our confidence level. But I love when I can do something for another person, and I wonder if other women have this experience too. Of sometimes the confidence comes from somebody really could use your help, and you didn't know you had the strength to do that, but you react to the emotional component of, oh, that person, I could help that person. And so you jump in and you do it. And then you go, oh, I guess I can,
Yes.
whatever the activity is.
Yes. In fact, one of the biggest things, like it's actually really a life changer. I had just moved to the Bay Area, and I had gotten a job. And I had this administrative assistant job, and I didn't know anybody in the Bay Area at that point. I didn't know anybody, and so I was like, well, I want to make some friends and meet some people, and so I joined a team in training to run a marathon.
Leukemia and lymphoma.
Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So I'm like, that's guaranteed to meet some people, because we run together twice a week, the same group of people. And, but the other part of it is that you have to fundraise. I think I had to fundraise like $1,500.
Oh, wow.
And yeah. And so, and like I said, I didn't know anybody in the area. I really just moved there because it was halfway between my sister and my mom. And I was like, halfway. So I can visit my sister easily, and I can visit my mom easily, And so, so it's harder to fundraise when you don't know anybody. And fortunately, I was doing a program that was pushing me to stretch my boundaries. And so the place that I worked was in this office park. And so I was like, well, one way that I could raise some money is if I have like a raffle. I could do a raffle and get businesses in the area to donate. And
like from your office park? Or did you?
Yeah, well, no, people in businesses just in the Bay Area. So okay. I think I got like the San Jose Symphony donated a couple tickets, just various, donations.
Wow.
Because you could do it. The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, because it's to benefit them, it's a tax write-off. So you just.
Sure. But you were just calling up businesses?
I was just calling and emailing businesses. I got a bunch of spa things. I got all these gift certificates. And then I was like, but like, who's going to buy the raffle tickets? Like, you can have all the prices you want, but nobody's going to buy the raffle tickets. So I decided I was going to do this like barbecue potluck in the office park. And so I just went from business to business, and each of the businesses had, something between like 5 and 15 employees. And I was like, hi, I'm thinking about doing a barbecue potluck. And I didn't have any money. I didn't have a barbecue. I didn't have anything that I need. But there's like 60 buildings in some of the buildings. So there's probably like, maybe 75 businesses. And I just went, we need somebody to bring chairs. We need somebody to bring tables. We need somebody to bring barbecue. Somebody needs to donate the hamburger.
You asked for the food too?
Yeah. Yes.
I love it.
Well, my boss was like, I'll get some hamburger and hot dogs. So we'll have the basics.
Sure.
But everything else people donated. Somebody brought one of those like balloon arches. Because they're like, yeah, we're going to bring balloon arches. I was like, thanks. Somebody brought like a whole thing of ice cream sandwiches. Anyway.
Wait, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What do you think you connected with in yourself to be able to do that?
I was terrified, but I was in a group where I was accountable. So every day I had to call this guy and tell him what I had done that day to move forward on it. I was terrified. I didn't have tequila shots because I was at work, but I had all of the other like walking into people's hi.
Yeah. So you had all the fear. All the fear was still totally there.
But I had to be accountable.
That's so interesting. And I think that that's a resource that anybody who feels the pull of social connection can use. And I think women tend to feel speaking in generalizations, right? I think women tend to be more socially attuned, right? To be paying attention to how people feel and who's doing what. Or maybe just, I should say, a more feminine way of thinking, like for those of us whose brains are more femininely skewed. So I love that you can use the wanting to not disappoint somebody, that social pressure, which can be a negative pressure, right? But you use it as a positive thing to do the thing that scares the pants off of you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it was. Because I would call this my accountability buddy, and I'd be like, okay, I emailed 3 businesses, or okay.
Yeah.
At my lunch hour, I would go out and it actually turned out really incredible. Like we had, I think, at least 100 and some people. Nice. I earned $1,000 of my dollars for my fundraising with raffle tickets, and then and then afterwards, I had a little bit of a breakdown because I was like, okay, this is a big deal breakdown. But then in the next couple of weeks, I realized how much I enjoyed event planning. Like that was the first major event I had ever planned, and now I have absolute confidence in my event planning skills because I've done it many, many times. After that, I was like, oh, I loved that. And I started throwing, and you've been to some of them because you're my friend. Like I started throwing chocolate and wine parties. I started throwing, Christmas or holiday cookie exchange parties. I just started hosting all these different parties.
And you were doing the art meetups too.
Yes.
Like with people you didn't know at all, and getting all the art supplies and doing projects and crafts. And
yeah, it wasn't just people I knew. I started a meetup group. So, but I didn't have the confidence in that until I pushed through this fear to get it.
It sounds like there's something more you get besides the confidence. It sounds like there's a special connection you get with that activity too, because it's kind of like an action movie where the 2 lead characters pretty much fall in love after only knowing each other for 4 hours, right? Because once you like defeat the bad guys and you're trapped in an elevator, it's that intensity that leads to an attachment, right? So here you have gone through this awful feeling of being scared to do it in the first place, and then once you do it, having that kind of feeling. Very smart gal I was in a class with this year used the phrase vulnerability hangover, which I love. we had a module on working through fear, and afterwards she said, does anybody else have a vulnerability hangover?
I love that.
I know, which I thought was fantastic.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But I would imagine that now you love event planning in a way that's beyond just, oh, I'm not afraid of it anymore, but it's like, I've worked really hard to, and went through this like emotionally intense experience. Right. So now that thing's my best friend.
Well, and I was very fortunate though, because it was something I didn't know that I loved. And that's probably why I was so scared in the first place. Because when you don't care about something, you're not scared about it. You're like, I don't care. Like,
oh, absolutely.
Like, I don't care about this thing. So it's no big deal to go start something. But it was it turned out to be one of the things that I love. I love planning and hosting events. And so that was something that I didn't know before I did it. And that was why I was so scared. But that's also why it was so rewarding.
That's a good reminder that the thing that feels really scary might be exactly the thing you want to be doing.
I think that's actually one of the truths.
Right. That's what you said. If you didn't care about it, you wouldn't be afraid of it. Yeah. Right. Like,
yes.
I just have no feelings toward that.
Right.
I care less. So what?
Right. Yes.
To listen to that fear and move toward it. Haha.
So I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
What advice would you give your younger self about confidence and gaining confidence?
Oh gosh. I think I have been very meek I'm sure I have been very meek for most of my life. And I know that part of that was coming from a place of not wanting to be too big, not wanting to step on anyone's toes. And so my lack of confidence was this kind of awkward, I won't, be rude to anybody as long as I stay small. And what I recognize is that meekness is annoying. I'm so sorry to anybody who just, struggles with that. But if I'm interacting with somebody who is just trying not to exist, trying not to be there, I find it awful to be around. So I guess the advice would be, by trying not to take up space, or by trying not to offend people, you're actually achieving exactly that.
Oh.
Stop being meek, embrace the confidence, because it's not, you disappearing is not making it better for other people. So it's not worth it. I mean, I guess that's, from a more pragmatic point of view, right? The underlying message would be confident, because I think you're awesome. But I would love it if I had just had that really clear, pragmatic understanding that holding back is still pushing people away. Does that make sense?
Yes, I do. I really, and that's valuable now. That's valuable now. Like, that's valuable. In fact, I'm going to take that advice for like doing things right now in my life where I'm nervous to move forward on some things, and it's actually doing the opposite of what I want. So, like, that's a good lesson. So, so we've been talking about, confidence and how does confidence tie into your writing coaching for your clients and for your clients?
Some students struggle with wanting things to be absolutely perfect. And one of the things I absolutely adore about my job is having the confidence to give other people the message that it's okay to be really bad at something. So I confidently type with typos, and I confidently say, I don't know what that word means. Let's ask Google, or any number of other things that I would have been terrified to say in the classroom. So in a kind of strange way, the confidence I'm able to demonstrate for students and hopefully help them attain for themselves is the confidence to be wrong and to be uncertain. And again, I was talking about workshop space earlier with having the online docs, and to just say, let it be bad. Do it boldly and let it be bad. You're not allowed to hit the delete key. Just get your ideas out there. And I watch students go from saying, well, I don't know, to typing up a storm. And then, we go through the whole writing process, so they eventually get something polished they like. But I love seeing that confidence build of, I'm just going to try it. So, I mean, it's the same principle you were saying. You don't know. I mean, sitting there and hesitating before you write anything because you're not sure it's going to be wonderful, that's so sad. Write something and then I mean, a lot of the resources I create are about how to kind of be Frankenstein and put together a monster, piece by piece. Except unlike Frankenstein, who rejected his creation, then at the end you're like, okay, how can I make this beautiful? How can I make this lovely? But to just say, I'm going to start with the first step and then move on to the second. I love watching that confidence develop in students. And sadly, I think it's something that the pace of school these days doesn't make a whole lot of room for. It's this, and everything is graded, so you have to make sure it's all exactly right. And with me, nothing is graded. So I love that. Just the confidence I love seeing in students the confidence to try it. If you don't like it, I'll let you change it later, but just try it. And I have students who are so much bolder than I ever was when I was in middle school or high school. And when I think about it, I'm really impressed by them, because I certainly would have, if an adult had said to me, well, just try it. It's okay if it's bad. No, I'll come back later when I've written something and then I've revised it 17 times and it's perfect. So it's,
as a writing coach, don't you have like a very, very, it's a different relationship. You're not their parent. And I just am really, just as you were talking about that, really feeling the sense of freedom that you're offering to these kids, where they get to There's something very special about putting your thoughts on paper. It's very vulnerable. It's very vulnerable. And here you are.
It's not like this is my unique way of solving this quadratic equation. I mean,
yeah, right. I'm going to look in my heart and see how I can pull out.
How could I factor quadratic this number? Equation?
No. Yeah, it's really...
it's vulnerable.
Yeah, it's very vulnerable. And clearly you were an expert at creating this space. And I just had this real sense of like breathing fully in freedom when you were talking about how you create that space for your students. So
super cool. Yeah. Well, I don't see why education has to be, I know it's serious, but I don't see why it has to be somber. Right? I mean, similarly with the tasks I need to do and bringing myself to do them, why would I take the route of being the taskmaster and forcing somebody? Why not invite? Why not make it funny? Please write an essay about Pokemon. I mean, like, what are you interested in? How can you practice this process in a way that's interesting to you?
Right.
And I learned a heck of a lot about Pokemon, I gotta say. And that great 5-paragraph essay this student wrote once. I was like, oh, okay, that's what all of those cards are about. It was informative.
Do you have a couple more minutes?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to see if we could open this seat and see if anybody has any questions about what we've been talking about?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Is it open now, people? Or did I lock it?
It says there's an open seat right now.
Oh, okay. Does anybody want to have any questions? Okay, cool. I guess not. So, well, where can people find you?
I'm at wholeed.com. That's whole, like all of it complete. WHOLEED.com. Mm-hmm. And that's where you can find everything I write on writing. I keep a regular blog if you want tips and writing strategies. I have writing coaching packages and lots of bad jokes. lots of puns that will make you groan.
No, they won't. They'll make us all laugh and be joyful.
And I'm also on Facebook /whole education and at Twitter, Megan Maxwell S.
Yeah, there you are. Okay, and then do you have something that you would like to offer people? And can you describe it a little bit?
Oh, yes. I would love to help everybody in the universe bust procrastination. I was the worst at writing papers when I was in school. I would stay up really late and churn out something that was terrible and not even have a chance to proofread it. And basically, I created the resource that I wish somebody had given to me when I was in high school. It's called the Procrastination Buster. It's free on my website, and it's a step-by-step guide for planning a writing project so you don't get stuck like I always got stuck writing something that wasn't your best at the last minute. So it's a really practical guide for how to get tasks onto your calendar so that you have a plan that makes sense and you can follow it. So that's over on my website, the Procrastination Buster. And it's one of my superpowers. It's not because I was born organized. It's because I am a lifelong procrastinator. So
that sounds like something that I should probably do that worksheet every day. Like there's some times where I look at stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, and I do the worksheet one time, and then 6 months later I'm like, you have a worksheet for this. Like the one time didn't fix it forever. So
nope, you got to keep going back. It's true, but that's okay. Okay, you just got to use your tools. So
I'm gonna put the links for your resources and and for keeping in touch with you. I'm gonna put them up, and then for me, if you want to reach out to me, I am at ellabarnard.com. And I don't have a free resource at this point, but I do have a book on Amazon.
But you have an amazing resource. That's very amazingly cost for what it is.
Yes, it's very inexpensive, and if you have Kindle Unlimited, it is actually free. So it's my book called Free to Be You, a practical and feminine handbook to guide you from surviving to thriving. It's a really long title. It's easy when you're reading it, but Yeah, I just call it Free to Be You. That's why. So it's called Free to Be You, and it addresses exactly these topics that we've been talking about: self-confidence and goal setting and achieving your goals and dreams. So,
but in a fun way.
Yes. Yeah, not in a taskmaster, pressure.
There you go.
Not like that. Just
that's
like,
kind of been the overarching theme of our talk today, huh? Is like free to be you, right? Give yourself the freedom to work in the way that you work.
Yeah. Well,
instead
and I
of
think
forcing things that don't work.
For me, in some ways, free to be you and living authentically is the answer to everything. So like, if you just be yourself,
including that quadratic equation, right?
Yes. I graduated from high school. I don't have to do quadratic equations anymore. So, okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here with me, Megan. Yeah, and thank you everybody who has been watching, and thank you. You know, we really, really appreciate. This is actually both of our first blab.
Yes,
so
we blab a lot, but it's our first time on blab.
Our first recorded blab. So thank you everybody who has been listening, and we really, really appreciate your support. If you liked it, go ahead and you can follow us. I'm going to be trying to do this about once a week, and see if I can have more awesome conversations with women about going after their dreams, living authentically, being happy, their businesses, creativity, all that kind of fun stuff. So look at, somebody said, great job.
Yay! Woohoo!
Woo! Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
We appreciate it. And Megan, I will talk to you later, and everybody, hopefully I'll see you again.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Ella. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.